heard that you need to be building your personal brand, but do you actually need one? So do you need to be posting on LinkedIn? Do you need to be building an audience, sending newsletters, putting yourself out there? Or can your experience and your offline network and your reputation and all of those things be enough? So that's what we're going to be exploring in today's session. I'm Samantha, and this is my co-founder, Sabina, and we are the co-founders of Talent and Truth. And we spend a lot of our time helping senior executives think about their positioning, their reputation, and what they want to do with those things after the corporate world. So we are not actually completely aligned on today's answer, which I think is going to make for a pretty interesting discussion. So please stick around, and hopefully this will be a really useful conversation for you. So to kick off, I think the one thing we are definitely aligned on is whether we all have a personal brand or not, but I'm going to kick that over to Sabina. So first things, does everyone actually have a personal brand?
Thanks, Sam. And I'm excited about this conversation because I know that you and I don't always see eye to eye when it comes to this. Now, does everyone have a personal brand? Does everyone need a personal brand? First and foremost, we already have one. So everyone has one. Everyone on this planet has a personal brand, whether you like it or not, whether you curate it or not, it already exists. And the way that we see what a personal brand is, the way that we rather define it is it's a thing that people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's your reputation. It's the way that people refer to you as. It's almost like the blank spaces that they fill in when someone has to describe who you are and what you do and what you're all about. And so we all have that already, and it exists. Now, what we're actually talking about today is, do you need to invest in that? So do you need to apply personal branding to that? Because the beautiful thing is that you can influence it. Your personal brand, you can mold it, you can shape it, you can influence it based on what it is that you want to get out of it, so you can leverage it. And so I'm excited to dive more into that topic, and also to figure out whether you really should be doing it, because not everyone has to do it. And there is a lot of mumbo jumbo out there that says you should do it and you should be investing and you need to post on LinkedIn, and maybe that's not always the right thing for you.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely aligned with you on that. And I do think that it's your personal brand is the thing that precedes you, right? It's like, before you've even walked into a space, it's like, what is being said about you, and being the person to take control of that narrative is really important. So love that. I want to first talk about who doesn't need to invest in their personal brand then. And then we're going to talk about the people who do, but who doesn't need to really be thinking about these things?
It's a good question, Sam. And I before answering that, I think it's important for people to really zoom out and think about, well, what do I want out of my life? And am I happy with where I am today? That ultimately would dictate whether or not you need to be investing in your personal brand, and whether you need to be essentially taking control of that. So before answering who doesn't and who does, you need to ask yourself, am I happy with where I am? Or is it possible that I would want to have other opportunities come my way? And that's really, really key, because applying personal branding and growing your personal brand, influencing that, directly results in opportunities over time. And so if you are someone, and this is my opinion, if you're someone who is, let's say you're doing well, you're earning well, you've got a great job or a great business, everything is going your way, no financial struggles, you're happy with how people are referring to you as, you have no desire to necessarily build a legacy, give back, you're happy with what's written about you on the internet, you're happy with how LLMs are describing you, you're happy with everything is just like a solid 10 out of 10, then it's possible that you don't really need to be investing in personal brand. And just for the record, investment does not necessarily require financial investment, time, resources, mental capacity, anything like that. So it's possible at that point, if everything is amazing in your world, then I don't really see the benefit of building a personal brand. But I'd love to throw this one back at you, Sam, because I feel like you might have a different opinion.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people do is think about, in this moment, I'm fine. In this moment, I'm not looking for a new job. In this moment, I have a really strong network. In this moment, my business is being driven by inbound, referrals. I'm not really having to be an active, participant in my business because, as far as lead generation goes, people are just throwing business my way. And whilst that's true now, it's a very easy trap to kind of get stuck into. And you can think, well, I don't have to build a personal brand because things have come very easily for me. And we made this mistake ourselves. I think for the first, I'm going to say 5 years, first 5 years, our business was built primarily on existing clients referring us, and people just finding us. We really didn't have to be all that active. And as the last 2 years have kind of played out, and has geopolitics have kind of, reared its head, things have become a little bit more challenging in the Middle East, finding business has been harder. And so some of these organic avenues that people were finding us through are not the case. And so we've had to be more vocal. And so what was true, 2 years ago is not true now. And so what is true now may not be true in the future as well. And so I think it's very important to think, about the future circumstances, and remembering that whilst things might be great now, you might have a great, network, people might be referring you, but, restructurings happen within businesses, people retire, relationships change, whatever the circumstances are, you're giving your power too much to other people. And you have to always remember that your personal brand is going to supersede all of those things. So I think you always want to be at a point where you're not relying on other people. And I think you give far too much of your power away if you are still relying on referrals and, people passing business your way and that type of thing. So in my view, I always just think have your own back, make sure that you have a personal brand that is going to make sure that future Sabina or future Jonathan is in a really good position, that I don't have to think about anyone else throwing business my way. My personal brand is so strong in itself, and people know exactly what I stand for. They know exactly what I can offer them, what service I provide, and there is no question about that. So yeah, that's my kind of take on it. Always just think in the future, are the circumstances going to change? 99% of the time, I think it's a yes. And so I think we have to prepare ourselves for changing circumstances in the future when we're thinking about our personal brand.
Yeah. Just to add, and just a reflection, you touched on that a little bit, Samantha, but when we started the business 7 years ago, the first 5 years we were busy all the time, busy, lots of referrals coming in. And ironically, at the time, this was 2020, we started working with a sales trainer as well as our client. So he was a client of ours, and he always looked at our business and said, you guys need to be prospecting more. You need to be building your brand more. You can never have enough prospects. You can never have enough clients. You can never have enough demand for your business. And we thought to ourselves, well, we're doing well. We've got a wait list. The inquiries are still coming. So it's all of your advice does not apply to us right now. And looking back, I wish I had done this literally 6 years ago, where we always had this always on mindset of, yes, we're doing well today, but we still want to have that leverage. And that is what investing in your personal brand and building your personal brand will do, because the tides will change, things will change. Industries will get topped upside down, restructurings happen. And if you really, again, put your eggs in one basket, you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position. And so as it comes to, just to answer the initial question that you asked me, Sam, around who doesn't need a personal brand, I would say the person who doesn't need to invest in their personal brand is the one who is first and foremost financially secure, regardless of what happens, regardless if they lose their job, regardless if their business has to get shut down overnight. The person that has financial security for life does not need to think about personal branding, in my view. The person, so if we think about financial security, second part is the person who has no desire to necessarily create their own, create a legacy, or the person who has no desire to maybe change what's written on Google or LLMs or how the world perceives them. So the person that's ultimately happy with how other people read them as and what they see about them online, that person does not need to think about it. So if they have financial security and they're happy with that, then they're great. And then I would say lastly, if we just think about it more philosophically, a person who maybe doesn't want to change an industry or disrupt an industry or create their own category, the person that's really just sitting today thinking to themselves, I have all the money I could ever need, no matter what goes wrong. I am super happy with what's written about me online and how my friends, my partners, my family, strangers perceive me. And I don't care to make any other difference in the world that others could potentially see or be influenced by. So if those three things are true for you, then it's not necessary to be, building your personal brand. And necessarily you don't need to put yourself out there is probably what I would say is my opinion.
Yeah. Really, interesting take. And I would say for the 99% of us, those circumstances are not true. I don't think for most of us, we have like generational wealth that is going to support us through all of these dips and everything. And for many of us, we might be happy with how things look now, but are we 100% happy? And do we want that to always be the brand with which is going to sustain us from now until we retire, right? So again, it's like these things might be true today, but are they true in the future? So yeah, I would argue that even then, if you are happy with the way that you are being perceived today, it is likely that it might change, and so I think you do kind of have to be on top of these things. And, regardless of whether you're posting actively on LinkedIn and kind of sharing, posts that will reflect the change of who you are, maybe it's just that you're updating your LinkedIn profile to reflect that, it doesn't need to be these, big productions, you're not out there really putting yourself out there all the time in a really active way. It can be a little bit more subtle, but I would argue you still really should do that. Okay, so we've talked about the people who don't necessarily need one. Who are the people, the executives, who do need to have a personal brand?
Like you said, the 99% that fall in that category. So I would say anyone who has an appetite for more or different, and anyone who really wants to be in control of their financial destiny, their future career, whatever it is they decide to do. Anyone who really is seeking to have that advocacy over, what they choose to do, that autonomy really. And so that is probably the person that could benefit from personal branding or investing in their personal brand. And I want to make it clear, personal branding does not necessarily refer to you needing to post on LinkedIn. I think that's kind of this all or nothing mindset that some people have, is they think that for me to build my personal brand, I have to be active on LinkedIn or I have to be active on Instagram or whatever. There are so many things that you can do between that also refers to the act of building your personal brand and the act of influencing others, the act of positioning yourself. And so it is not one or the other. But to answer your initial question, Sam, I would say anyone who has appetite for more, anyone who has appetite for more control over their time, their money, their life, their just that optionality. If you want to have that freedom to choose, then you will benefit from building your personal brand. And just to emphasize that again, that doesn't have to mean that you need to start posting on LinkedIn or going live like the two of us are doing right now. There are many other things you can do that are also effective and sometimes more effective as well.
Yeah. So let's touch on that, because I would say it's probably one of the biggest objections we get from people who know that they have to build a personal brand, but they don't necessarily want to put themselves out there for various reasons. They might feel it's cringy. They might feel that they're going to get in trouble from their employer. They're going to be thought to be looking for a new job when that might not be the case. There is a lot of, for reasons for why people don't build a brand. But one of them does tend to be that they don't want to become, quote unquote, like a content creator. They don't want to be filming videos. They don't want to go live. So what are some of the other avenues that these types of people can take to still have a strong personal brand without having to do some of this type of stuff?
Yeah. I'll touch on that shortly. I just want to say thank you for the comments. We'll jump into those shortly. And please, if there's anything else that you guys want to know or that you want to ask, feel free to shoot them. And then Sam, maybe you and I can just dedicate the last 5 minutes of the session to just answering a few of those. But just to touch on your original question on what else can people do, I would say that before you start thinking about what should I post, where can I post, what do I need to update, I would probably turn the spotlight on yourself and ask yourself, who am I and what do I have to give? And so who am I actually? And this does not need to be like philosophical, as in, uncovering all your whatever your childhood trauma and figuring out all of these bigger life questions. It's really looking at your career history, the patterns that have been pretty obvious in your career. What is the common thread? So what are the problems you've consistently been solving throughout your career? What is the thing people come to you for, where they're like, oh, go to Sabina, she can help you solve like that specific problem. What are your natural strengths? So when I say figure out who you are and what you have to give, I mean that within a professional context. Before you start building your personal brand, first figure out, well, who am I at my best when I position myself at my best? And so spending time to work through that, to figure that out. At Talent and Truth, we also have a process that we can help our clients, figure that out. We figure it out with them, basically. But it's basically just going back to understanding who you are and what is that unique, that selling point that you can give others, that unique value that you can offer others. And that ultimately then determines your positioning. So before you start posting and thinking about crazy things, figure out who am I and how can I position myself so that there is alignment between me at my best and what my customers will potentially receive, as well as information, how they can potentially work with me or potential employers even as well. So I would start there. And then there are many other things, but Sam, I want to give you an opportunity as well to add anything else that you want to add to that part.
What was the question? I can't even remember what I asked, and that's
what else can people do besides just the LinkedIn piece? Well, like, being an active content creator.
Yeah, I think like the offline networking is a big one. And I guess, leans into your point about, doing the things that ladder up to your strengths, right? And between you and I, we know that I enjoy networking. I enjoy going to these types of events and stuff. So for us to sell our brand, I do the thing that I enjoy, which is to go to, different events, to conferences. I enjoy introducing myself, speaking on panels, doing podcasts, but you do things on the other side of the business that lean to your strengths. You're still selling the business, but you might be writing newsletters, having new business calls, doing more like strategy and consultant work to bring people in those ways. And so, yes, certainly leaning into your strengths, but in my case and in your case as well, having a really strong offline network, going to these events where people can meet you. As great as it is to have an online reputation, the most important thing always will be the offline one that you have, and the way you make people feel when you meet them, and that's going to be more important. I think there's nothing worse than when you meet someone who you maybe been following on LinkedIn for a long time and you think, oh my God, I really like this person, or they make me feel this way. I know that if I had to meet them in real life, they would, be this type of character. And then you meet them and you're like, oh, wow, no, you're very, very different to actually what I thought. And I think it's important that your offline persona matches the online one. And so I think that those opportunities to just kind of be out in the wild and meeting people, building your reputation in that way, it makes you, it's important to have an aligned one, but then to just have that, I guess, giving people like the trust that you are credible, that you're someone who they would trust with their personal brand. In our case, that they think that we're qualified, we're good at what we do, but also that you're just a likable person and they wouldn't mind actually working with you all the time. So definitely the in-person is important as well.
Yeah, so effectively, what we're saying is figure out who you are. So positioning yourself and doing that introspection positioning, that's an act of personal branding yourself. Because when you're clear on that, and when you're clear on how you're introducing yourself, how other people's are receiving that information, and when there's alignment, that's already like one massive tick against building your personal brand. That doesn't necessarily involve posting content on LinkedIn. The second part that Sam was saying about offline activities, that is also an act of applying personal branding, of building your personal brand, is meeting people in real life. I would probably say that's sometimes even more valuable than posting online and doing anything online, is when you're able to create really strong and powerful offline relationships, and then in turn turn those into business discussions or different types of opportunities. So that also is another act of personal branding. But to figure out what is the right thing for you, again, I would first zoom out. So if, let's say, you're this type of person where you don't have the financial security that's going to last you until the day you die or whatever, you still want more. You want to be able to control that and control, different income. You want to control your time. You want to control your life, basically. Then yes, personal branding makes sense for you. First, figure out what that picture should look like, though. So before even thinking about platforms and all the different tactics, figure out, well, what does my ideal life look like? What does the ideal scenario for me look like? Who am I, and what can I monetize? What can I truly leverage? How do I need to position myself so that other people can read that information and say, right, okay, that makes sense. I can hire Sabina for this outcome. And then following that, look at what are the different ways that you can apply that. So offline networking, building relationships, updating your LinkedIn profile, Substack, whatever it is. Those are ultimately just distribution channels. But it starts really at the core of understanding what I want, who I am, what I have to give, and then making sure that that information is in alignment with how the world receives it, which ultimately is positioning. And then making sure that whatever channels, offline, online, is, it doesn't, obviously it matters, but first make sure that you have that base, that foundation in a good place.
Yeah. Really good points. I want to make sure we have enough time. I don't have the people's questions in front of me, but do you want to bring those up and we can, make sure we address them?
Yeah, I'll start here. Vimla asked, hi, Sabine and Samantha, what are you doing differently from 7 years ago to maintain a client pipeline? I'll jump in with that. Good question, painful question, because a lot of regrets. A lot of regrets, but what we're doing differently. So 7 years ago, we showed up on LinkedIn when we felt like it. And we just sort of winged it, whereas now we have an actual system and support in place. So what we're doing differently essentially is that we've been very clear on our positioning, which previously we were not. So we fixed our positioning. We're active on LinkedIn and a few other channels. We have active newsletter campaigns in place. And we're super clear on who our ideal customer is. Whereas previously we were a little bit more, I would say we were cowboys. And so if work came our way and we could do it, we would do it. But over the last year, we've pretty much changed that, and we've had to trim the fat on a lot of things, position ourselves really, really clearly, show up consistently, even, when it hurts, when it's uncomfortable. But because we want more and we have an appetite for more, that is why we're doing this, to make sure that our business is protected, that we're protected, and that we can all continue to grow. So that's what we've done differently, is we've just applied a system and that strategic conviction as to who we are, who we serve, and exactly what we do. And then made sure that there is a system that literally never stops, and a machine that can help and support. We've got an amazing team that helps us. Half our team is just dedicated to marketing. And so that's 4 people whose full-time job it is marketing, newsletters, sales, content creation. So it's a fairly substantial investment on our part. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I was going to say the other thing to add here as well is doing workshops and webinars. This is something else that we previously hadn't done before, but it has allowed us to again, be face-to-face with people, or in some cases doing virtual webinars. But we will often do like corporate workshops as well. So it's just another avenue for us to reach, corporations that maybe want to use their teams to, I guess, have like an employer branding approach, and for us to kind of go in and train them on how to do that. So we're also kind of going at it from different angles as well, because we recognize there's a real need, and it allows me specifically to be able to do something that I enjoy. And again, like kind of working to all of our strengths and realizing, what is going to drive the business furthest, fastest, and for us to do that, just it's another revenue stream, but then also something else that allows me specifically to be a little bit happier as well, and to really lean into things that I enjoy. So the newsletters as well is something that we didn't do until this year, and I think that was something that previously, had we done, we would have actually built up a really healthy base for our newsletter. And we're kind of starting from scratch. Whereas if we think, oh, well, we should have done this in 2019, it would have been really nice if we'd actually dedicated this. But because we just thought, oh, it's not necessary, we don't need to do it, we just didn't. So we're definitely playing catch up in that respect. But we're starting to kind of see the fruits of that labor pay off as well.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is when things are going well, you don't think you need a personal brand, or you don't think you need to invest in it at least. We made that same mistake, and we were super busy as an agency, and we still are, thank God. We've got great clients and we're doing well. However, had we just implemented those systems and just kept at it 5-6 years ago, we would probably be 5 to 10 times the size we are today. And I truly believe that. So it's probably my biggest regret, is that we didn't implement the stuff that we're doing today. We didn't implement that 5-6 years ago when things were going well and we just had a lot of inbound. So hopefully that's helpful. Next question from Eric. What can an executive do to generate comments on posts? To generate comments on posts, you need to make sure your posts are interesting. So I wish there was a science or an art to that, but make sure that your posts are interesting, that either they make you likable, trustworthy, or communicate some sort of authority. Make it easy for people to comment. I often think to myself, when I'm writing my own content, I'm trying to think, if somebody was reading this, would they know instinctively what to comment? Or would they spend too much time thinking about, what can I comment on this post? I often read content that I love, but it's too hard for me to think of something to say, or it's too hard for me to answer their question, that I just I like, and I scroll past it. So that would be my opinion. Sam, anything from your side that you think could help Eric generate comments on posts?
Yeah, I think, simplifying the question, the call to action at the end, is a really good one, because you have to think about what people are happy to respond on a post in a public forum. For instance, if you see someone's question is, is your employer doing X, Y, and Z, and your employer isn't, you're not going to necessarily go and comment that, even though you might feel it and you might feel compelled to say something. There are certain forums that you just don't feel like you can. And so you really limit people. And as much as you might want to ask that question, I would think realistically, what are people going to feel safe saying in a forum where their employees or their employer is, where their peers are, future employees or employers for them. So all of these types of things are going to play into how comfortable they feel. So I would definitely think about that. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
It's often happened to me where I've engaged on a post and then I realize what the post said. And I thought to myself, shit, if one of my clients saw me liking this post, they might think differently. And then I would go and unlike the post. So unfortunately, it's a funny world we live in, but we also have to consider corporate politics. So whatever it is that you're posting, make sure it's something people would naturally want to be associated with as well, where they want to see their name, on somebody else's feed having liked it or commented it as well. So you need to think a lot deeper, and I guess put the spotlight on the audience to see how would they engage with this. And if it's not easy for you, then it would be even harder for them to engage on your content.
Are there more questions?
Yeah, we've got a number, so I'm going to move on. Georgina asks, how do you know if your efforts towards building a personal brand are working? Sam, do you want to jump in? Otherwise, I can quickly give a couple of thoughts from my side.
Yeah, go from your side and I'll carry on thinking. I
So
haven't seen the question.
3 things from my personal side, personal experience that I'm doing, because I have evolved my personal brand over the last couple of months. So this is what I'm doing to see if what I'm doing is working. Number one, I regularly check LLMs to see what they are saying about me, what they're saying about my business, and if they're picking up the right key message. So first of all, I'm looking between alignment of what is it actually that I want people or LLMs to say, and what is it actually that they're saying. So I look for alignment. Second thing that I'm doing, and I do recognize that it can be a little bit demotivating when you're building your personal brand and you don't have $1 million business inquiries that are coming through your DMs. Trust me, it can feel a little bit demoralizing. So what I have it saved in my Notion. I literally have a folder that's called Proof It's Working. And literally every single proof that I have that it's working, I just dump it in there. And so examples would be even comments that I receive on my content, DMs that I get, a small sentence that someone sends, some of the wonderful comments that we're getting on today's live. That is all proof to me that it's working. And so you have to, in a way, just be delusional to say, because I don't have the results just yet, I need other proof. And so I'm just going to create a folder. So that's what I've done. And then lastly, the third thing, proof that it's working, is looking at what type of customers are reaching out. So is it your ideal client profile? Is it your ICP? If it is, then that's already a small proof that it's working because you're attracting the right person. Is that person, are they using the language that you've used in content? How did they come to you? Was it through your content or was it through something else? So really analyzing the type of client that's coming into your ecosystem. Of course, also being able to sell them, convert them, whatever, support them on whatever it is that they need. That is another example that it is working. But I would say you have to look at the intangible things and the more tangible things, which ultimately would be revenue and follower growth and likes and comments and all of these beautiful things. But you need to have both, because that will just keep you focused on the path and will keep you focused on going forward. Do you have anything else to add, Sam? Otherwise, we can crack on.
Yeah, I would just say, like, to your final point there, just with checking the data as well, obviously you're going to be getting, DMs, and maybe emails that, people are not necessarily leaving comments and stuff, but you're going to get those and you're going to know they're the right people. But also looking at the back end data on your post to understand, okay, am I reaching the right types of people with what I'm writing? Is it the demographic I want? Am I reaching senior leaders when in fact I'm trying to reach entry level people? Am I reaching people in this market when in fact I want to be reaching people over here? And adjusting that strategy as you need to. So I think you can start seeing things in the numbers as well if you're very intentional about checking them, understanding who is actually reading and consuming and leaving comments and meaningful comments on your post. But I think you covered some really good ones.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. I'm going to touch on 2 more comments that we have. So from Eric again, meetings are important. What about accessibility? So I assume what he's referring to in this case is, what if you recognize meetings are important, but you can't always be there. And now we actually have this problem ourselves, Samantha, where our business is based in Dubai. We have a lot of clients in the UAE, in the UK, and in the US. However, we actually live a very remote life. So I think most people will not know that Samantha and I live in Namibia, which is pretty much like in the middle of nowhere. And so we cannot attend most meetings and most events and most of the traditional networking opportunities that would help us get out there. So what do? Number one, we try to substitute that. We're active online. We're trying to we're building our brand and engaging with people online. We take those conversations offline, have Zoom calls, coffee catch-ups, etc. Second thing is we travel frequently. So we're very lucky, very blessed. We get to travel quite regularly for work. Then we make a point to catch up with people, to foster those relationships, to do the coffee meetup, to go to the event, to do the networking. And so we try to be really strategic with when we are in the country, whether it's in London, whether it's in Dubai, to make sure that we are there at the right place with the right people. So I think if you're able to put intentionality towards it, and if you're able to really show up and really be genuine, then I would say you are fine. We've managed to do it. It's been 7 years now that we've lived a little bit more of a remote lifestyle, and we've been doing it pretty well for ourselves. Sam, do you have anything else to add there?
I would just say, I guess, if accessibility is a tension point, that even just being meaningful with the comments that you're maybe leaving on their LinkedIn. So if the people who you're trying to be more connected with are active content creators, watching their stuff, leaving meaningful comments, really just like establishing that connection with them, showing up, sending them a DM and that type of thing. I feel like those are probably the best ways that you're going to be able to kind of make a connection with someone if distance is an issue. So I think sometimes we have a tendency to overcomplicate connection. Yeah. And I think these little touch points, even to say, I came across this article, I thought it would be interesting, or send them, if you're connected with them on Instagram, I send memes to some of my clients like, lol, this is you, things like that, because we have that type of relationship. But if it's maybe just a potential customer sending a podcast that you were like, oh, this was quite interesting about, construction in Dubai, thought it would spark, a meaningful debate, something like that. So I think just showing them that they are top of mind and that you are thinking of them is quite a nice way to connect with them.
Yeah, exactly. Final question from Elena, and just want to call out, Elena, I think I saw you comment on one of my recent posts. I think you were the safe space that you had commented on. So thank you for that. Elena's asking, if you were to narrow down 3 things and advise a solopreneur to start doing today in terms of personal brand that has the highest ROI, what would that be? So 3 things. First things first, I would probably, and Sam, maybe I give one, you give one, and then I can finish off. So from my side, I would say, number 1, be super, super clear on your positioning. Be super clear on what you offer. Be super clear on how you do it differently. Be super clear on the reasons to believe. So why somebody should believe that you are capable and competent, and why you can deliver whatever service or whatever transformation. We so often, when we're execs, if we go independent, we become generalists, and we can offer many things, we can do many things, and that's when it just becomes really confusing for people. So really write down, this is what I do, and use basic language. Do not overcomplicate it with jargon, so that when you are having to pitch yourself and talk to someone, you're so specific, and they can almost like drop a pin in exactly like what you do, who you serve, how you do it, the problem that you solve. So that's what I would say, is spend a lot of time doing that. Again, reflecting on my own mistakes, we did not do that. We started a business, there was demand for it, and we just went with it. Whereas now, 6 years later, 7 years later, now we've obviously done that process and we're a lot clearer. But when you're really, really clear on that, when you're really clear on your ideal customer, on the exact problem that you can solve, and you make sure that the world can see that and you can communicate that, then everything else becomes a lot easier. So for me, the first thing would be positioning. People skip that step because it's not the sexy step, it's not the fun step, it's not the step that gets attention. But it's the most important part, is to get your positioning right. Sam, anything? What is your second point for Elena?
Yeah, so assuming you've done that and you are crystal clear with your positioning, and you've then communicated it onto your LinkedIn, and if that is your platform of choice, be very intentional about connecting with your target audience. That's the beauty of LinkedIn, is that you can actually go and you can build an audience with the people who will want your service and they will want your product. So spend, an afternoon just connecting with people. Be really intentional about building out a list, going through, adding people, sending them a DM. That way you actually have the right people who are going to be served with your content when you're creating it, if you choose to create content, that is. But once you have that, at least you have an audience that is primed for the type of service or product that you're going to be creating. Don't just rely on it kind of finding all the right people. Spend time actually creating an ecosystem of people who care about the stuff that you are doing. It's an easy thing. You can do it, slowly over time. It's always a work in progress, but I think start with that first. It's going to make a massive difference, because when you do start publishing content, at least it's going to people who are going to be interested.
Yeah. And then final thing to add as point number 3, which I think is, if top 3 things for solopreneur to think about, is zoom out. So often we're so like hyper focused on LinkedIn and adding this and changing this and posting this. I would say zoom out and look at your marketing ecosystem as a whole. Unfortunately, we all need to become marketers, whether you're employed, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're a CEO of a company, whether you're a founder, whatever it is, we all need to start thinking like marketers. And we all need to really think about, because ultimately communication keeps everything together and it flows through every single part of business. So what I would say is zoom out of just focusing on LinkedIn and the adding of the connections, because ultimately the algorithm can change like that. And if you've been posting for a very long time and it changes and you lose, 50% of your reach, then that can impact your business. So I would say zoom out and look at your marketing ecosystem as a whole. How are you building a database? I'm not saying you have to start a newsletter, but I am saying find ways that you can start just capturing email addresses. Is it that maybe once a quarter you can commit to sending a newsletter out? That's a really small thing that you can do once a quarter. I know as a solopreneur, you're doing 1,000 things at once, but maybe that is one small thing that you can start doing. Because if you've got email addresses and if you're nurturing those, or if you're able to connect with people, let's say once a quarter, that's already a way that you are owning the data, you're owning the community, and you're not giving your whole life over to LinkedIn. So look at that ecosystem. Look at things like, and again, back in the day, we didn't have to think about things like lead magnets, but what is something that you can offer your customers or potential customers to build trust, to showcase how you think, to educate them, to convince them that you're the right person for the job. So could you create a long form article? Could you create some helpful resource if you know how to code or build GPTs? Is that something that you could offer people? What is it that you can create that you can give for free to others to build that trust and to show, look, I know what I'm talking about, and so I'm going to give this to you so you can get a bit of a flavor for what I do, for how I work, for how I communicate. The thing we have to consistently combat as entrepreneurs is people will not trust you. Back, a number of years ago, they would trust you just because you were showing up on LinkedIn. However, now you've got bots, you've got all this stuff showing up. I think half the internet is like the dead internet, that people are not going to trust you. And so you have to find so many different touch points to make them trust you. And that is a way to create trust. So really thinking about that ecosystem as a whole, thinking about if somebody is on your LinkedIn profile, do they know how to contact you? And when they contact you, how long is it taking you to get back to them? So thinking of all of those little customer journey touch points is probably where I would spend time doing, and as much as possible, try to capture data and try to build something that is yours. So fix your positioning, make sure you're really clear on that. Look at what you can do on LinkedIn with connecting with your ICP, because that's going to benefit you. And then don't forget to zoom out and build something that is yours, something where you can contact people, you can email them, you can add value to them. You can think of these valuable sales or editorial assets that are going to convince them that you are the right person, and that most importantly, you are trustworthy as well. And yeah, I think that is pretty much it. We're good. Thanks so much, guys, for all the comments. It's really, really great to see the engagement. And as for Georgina's question earlier on whether or not to find ways if your personal branding is working, this is a great example. We've got a lot of proof that what we're doing is working because we've got some great engagement. So thank you. Sam, anything else from your side? Otherwise, we can wrap up.
No, nothing. Thank you guys so much for joining, though, and for being so collaborative and sending your questions through. It's always great. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys again next week, same time, same place, and we will be here answering even more questions. And if you have any subjects that you want us to touch on, please let us know. You can drop those in the comments as well, and we'll be very happy to do a session on that as well. But otherwise, awesome. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Bye.